And we are live on Facebook and on radio for the Thursday edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show, the JWB Rental Income Property of the Week. Week. None other than my boy, the MVP of the Not Your Average Investor Show community, a JWB client since 2019, owns 5 rental properties with us, but our relationship means so much more than just that. Lee has been a friend, a supporter, an advocate of this show and this community long before there ever was a show and long before there ever was a community. Mr. Lee Bishop, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Greg. That's a great warming speech. Nice. I got I'm sporting, for those of you who can see it, I'm sporting a Not Your Average Investor Show shirt. And I'm just happy to be on the show and pitch in where I can. Property income of the week is always fun.
We have a good one today. You're going to love this one. And thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you for making this show so special. I tell you what, every Tuesday and Thursday when I wake up in the morning, I'm genuinely excited to hang out with all of you and get to do what I love to do. So thank you all for making that so special. We do have an incredible opportunity to learn from Lee today, and we have an incredible opportunity to learn from all of you as well. I do want to let everybody know that this show is meant to be interactive. It's meant for you to have a blast. That's why you tune in here live rather than just listening on the podcast. You should be here live. You should be here in the audience. We've got, 30, 40, 50 investors that show up every single week and hang out with us. It's a community builder, and it's an opportunity for you to ask your questions live to our esteemed experts. So join the show. You can register for free at nyais.com. That's nyais.com for Not Your Average Investor Show. And with that, I haven't said hello to my good friend and our marketing coordinator here at JWB, our community manager, Miss Madison Lipson. How are you doing, Madison?
Hello, everybody. I am doing just fine. Have a great day.
What's the best part of your day so far, Madison?
This right here, actually getting to talk to people and hang out, not just look at my computer all day. So
Madison is one of the most positive people. And so with that, Madison has created her own segment on the show called Madison Shares Good News. And so we're going to kick it off here talking about Madison sharing some good news. You want to take it away, Madison?
Absolutely. All right, guys. So the good news this week is none other than our client tour. We do it every month. This month, it's tomorrow. So super excited. We love when you guys come meet everybody, see the office, get to see some properties. So I am going to tell you who is going to be here. We have the Bolton brothers, Jeff and Chris Bolton. They have been clients since 2021. They own 4 properties and they just put 2 more under contract, set to close in the next 2 months.
Woohoo!
So they will be here. We have Jacqueline. She has been a client since 2019. She owns 1 property with us, and she is bringing her fiance, Bryce. And then last but not least, we have Dixon. He is coming with his +1, Belle. They have been clients since 2020, and they own 1 property. So we got a really cool group coming. Super excited for them to be around the office, get to interact, have lunch, get them out in the field, see some cool properties. So
well done, Madison. That is exciting news, incredible news. How cool is it that we actually get to do our client tours again, right?
Yeah.
Because of COVID, of course, we had to put a pause on that. So you want to talk about things that we're just thankful for when you wake up in the day. I'm thankful that we can have client tours and get to meet all of our clients face to face and brand new clients that have put properties under contract for you to come say hello and meet the wonderful people here at JWB that are taking care of your investments. So thank you so much. Well, very cool. Well, Lee, you know what's coming next, brother. It's this little tradition we have called the roll call. And I was talking with Lee off camera before, and he goes, "Hey, can I jump in and help on the roll call?" I'm like, absolutely. Yeah, you definitely can. I definitely need the help. So Lee, can you see all the chats?
Yeah.
All right, Lee, you want to take it away? Let's do the roll call, brother.
Roll call. So we got John Henning saying good afternoon. Dean Curry saying just checking in. Leo Faraganen saying good morning from California, Bay Area. Shelly Johnson saying greetings from Bradenton. And my friend Nadine Shaw, good afternoon, everyone. Carl Thompson, good morning, everyone. Sounds this is going to be a high energy how more than normal. Andrew Barnhill says, bring it, Lee.
Love that.
Leslie Wilson says, good morning from Denver. Noah
Wonderful,
says, hello,
Leslie.
everyone.
Marilyn Cotterman,
come on
home
now.
of the manatees.
She says, pumped, y'all. Hervé Francois, my friend. He said, Lee in the house.
Good to see Hervé.
So we have Eddie Harris. Hi, all. Eddie from Atlanta. Louis Hudnell. Good morning from Milpitas, California. Peter James. To esteemed Peter James tuning in from the Commonwealth of Virginia. You all rock. Ken
So
Moline. Hi, Lee. We're hoping to meet you in Jacksonville last December, but it didn't happen. Ken Moline is the
patriarch of the first family of the
patriarch.
Not Your Average Investor Show. Well done, brother. Well done on the roll call. Well, you guys are incredible. Keep showering love to Lee and keep helping me get through this without Pablo. He is pretty incredible. We miss him, but we know he's having a great time out there. Without further ado, let's jump into this. We do have our turnkey rental income property of the week, which we're going to share in just a minute. But first, Lee, one of the things that I love the most about getting to help people buy rental properties really has nothing to do with the actual rental property. It's understanding their why. Their why is the motivation much more than just dollars and cents. It's the motivation that's driving people to this asset class. I always joke with people and I say, you know what, there's a lot more fun things that you can do with a couple $100,000 than buy a house for some other family that you don't know to live in for 4 or 5 years. There's got to be a big motivating force. Can you share with people what your why is and what that motivating force was for you to start investing in rental income properties?
Yeah, it always makes me tear up when I think about it. But I started out thinking that I wanted my wife to be proud of me, because everybody has this retirement account that they save up for. And when we were starting out, it was always work, save. And in retirement, you can spend what you earned in your wonder years. And we were talking to my retirement counselor, and he said, you'll be able to live like you do now. And my wife was like, well, that's 2 weeks off. And he said, yeah, you'll be able to take 2 weeks off. And she said, but I'm going to have 365 days off. We need to do something about that. So I said, hey, you know what? JWB has this turnkey rental income property. We can invest some of our principal, not have the principal erode, be able to pay off those properties in a couple of years, and then be able to get this passive income flowing and not erode our principal. And if we needed to sell the property because of some issue, an emergency, we had it. We had the nest egg. And so she's still going in her traditional route until she feels more comfortable. It's been a couple of years. I don't know why she's not comfortable, but she is doing, she's maintaining the Wells Fargo account as, I don't know, it's her safety feature, her umbrella, but she's loving how this has turned out for us. And I said, we just refinanced. I think I was telling you, we just refinanced in December, and our cash flow went from a little under $100 a month to about $250 or more a month for each property. So I was kind of excited about that. I mean, that means paying down these things. I said it was going to be 8 years when I first signed up. Now it's 60 months. That's a car payment.
That is awesome. And what you shared with me as far as the reason for doing this, I think, man, if I can think about one thing that's most important in my life is having my wife be proud of me. I don't know if I've ever heard that from a client, but man, what a natural kind of relatable why. I mean, at the core of everything, I think everybody can relate to that. So thank you for sharing that. And Lee, would you give everybody just a little bit of background? You bought 5 rental properties with us. You started in 2019, purchased those roughly around the same time. We'll take a look at that here towards the end of the show as I give you your big reveal here. What did you do prior? Was this your very first time investing in rental properties? What did you do prior? And what helped you take that leap of faith to doing something which is unconventional like this?
Yeah. So I was an IT guy for, 100 years, it seemed like. And I retired, and my wife said, you're not retiring. You're too young to retire. And I said, okay. And she said, let's do real estate investing. And I said, I'm not swinging a hammer. Not that I couldn't. I said, I'm not going to swing a hammer. And she said, let's see what Fortune Builders has to say about that. So we went to the Fortune Builders, sign up for that. And we said, let's get the coaching. Let's get the training. They teach us how to do things. And one of the things that they showed us was how to do asset protection and passive income. And once you became, successful, you had cash to invest. So you weren't being taxed on all this stuff all the time. And that all made sense to me. But as I got into the vetting out process of the passive income flow, they had a couple of people that they were talking to. You talk to the coaches, you sign up for it, you got to listen to a video. Now you do your due diligence, And I think at the time they had 3 people that I wanted to talk to. And I had met you at the Ignite, in 2019. And I had told you, man, I'm going to do that. But before that, I met you at one of the conferences and I did a little client testimonial because it was November that I did, that we paid cash for the first one. It was Thanksgiving time. And it was a real easy process. The girl came to the house at my sister-in-law's house, signed a couple of pieces of paper, and I was a property owner. And because I was using cash, there wasn't a lot of documentation. And then at December, we were back up in Pennsylvania visiting my sister, and we closed on 4 more properties and used non-recourse lending on all that. And your JWT team was able to set us up with somebody that provided funding. And, me using the non-recourse lending, it all worked out great. They worked with me and, it went smoothly. 4 houses at the same time was as easy as getting one, So I couldn't have asked for a nicer, smoother experience. And it really was a pleasure working with your team trying to develop those.
All right, well, let's jump into this property of the week, Lee. This is a new construction property and it is already rented on a long-term lease. It is available. It is ready to be put under contract immediately. And the reason that's important is that you can lock in your low interest rate. Already has a paying resident in place with a long-term lease through 2025 and comes with a $2,520 buyer credit at closing. There is a lot to love about this property, which we'll get into in just a second here. But before we do that, I wanted to do a little bit of breaking news that comes along with this property of the week.
Beep, 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 beep.
Lee, you're the man. You're the man. For anybody who hasn't heard yet, the Fed has raised interest rates a 1/4 point. They just agreed to do that. For everybody who is on this show, this should be the least breaking news of all time because we have been talking about this for probably 4 months, and meaning like we knew that rates were going to rise roughly around this time. Short-term interest rates were going to rise. But before that, we had talked about the market dynamics that were going to lead to higher interest rates as we talked into 2022 and 2023 and the impact that this has on your rental income properties. Borrowing costs are rising, and everybody who is thinking about buying properties today and over the next 3 months, 6 months, a year, you should really be paying attention because this is the first in a series of signaled rate increases by the Fed. These short-term interest rate hikes that they control have an indirect effect on long-term interest rates, which means that these will raise your interest rates on the properties you buy, which ultimately means that the property we're looking at here today on Meteor is going to have higher cash flows and a higher return on investment than if you bought this same property a year from now, simply because interest rates are going up. And in addition, home prices are going up. I want to beat this drum as much as I possibly can because this is going to help you maximize your return on investment to buy now versus buying 1 year, 2 years, 3 years from now. If you are looking for maximizing your return on investment, and the Fed, of course, is now starting to raise rates. They just did. They also have 6 more scheduled rate increases this year. They're not confirming that. They're not doing that yet, but the tide is showing us that they're probably going to raise rates a record 6 to 7 times this year. They typically raise them a 1/4 point, right? Think about what a 1.5 increase on your interest rate will do to this property that you're seeing 1 year from now, right? There is no doubt that buying today versus buying a year from now, you're going to have a better return on investment today. So hopefully I've made that clear. That's why I love this property. Number one, it's available. You can close on it. You can put it under contract immediately and you can start to close on it, which means you can lock in your interest rate today before 3 months from now when your rates are higher, or 6 months from now, or a year from now. The other thing that we need to talk about is availability. For those who attended the Jacksonville real estate market update about 2 weeks ago, I shared with everybody why a waiting list is coming for JWB rental properties, looking at the number of properties that we have in inventory versus the number that are selling on a weekly basis. Originally, I told you guys it was going to be somewhere between 2 to 8 weeks from 2 weeks ago, right? I think it's going to be right in that window when you start to see a waiting list for JWB properties. If I was a betting man, I would say probably like 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks from now, you're going to see a waiting list. So again, if this is something that you're thinking about doing, you are considering this in the next 3 months, 6 months, a year, get on the phone with your portfolio manager with JWB. If you're a new client, reach out, start that conversation with us. You can reach out to Madison here and she'd be happy to facilitate a call for you. But this is really probably the most urgent I will ever be when it comes to taking action, because so many forces are going in the direction that this is going to be a better performing asset if you make that decision today than a year from now. This one on Meteor Street that we're looking at right now, 559 Meteor Street, this is one of those properties that JWB made available, right? Wow. We made those 40 properties available. So this is one that I own currently, and the next client who owns it will be buying that directly from JWB, of course. And, you know, we're really good at keeping homes rented. This home is already rented, already has a resident in place. And Lee, you remember that question you asked me where you stumped me last week on the property? As I was preparing for the call.
I hated that.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I was like, I got to make sure I look up the lease. So this lease is actually extended through 2025. They renewed, I think it was last month, within the last 2 or 3 months, they renewed again for another 3 years. So they are there through 2025.
So why is there a credit on this one then?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. And that's a great question. So is this an example of, you know, why would somebody give a $2,520 buyer credit in a property like this? And so I wanted to walk through why that makes sense for the owner, the future owner of the property, why that makes sense for the resident, and why that makes sense for JWB. When a home is rented below what market rent has appreciated to, we need to set up our client, the person who owns this property in the future here, we need to set that person up for success to make sure that they're going to hit that desired return on investment. And sometimes, even though JWB rents out the property for market value at that time, sometimes rents have appreciated since that moment. And so it is not rented at full rent capacity for what you could get if we just started renting it immediately today. It's been rented for a little while, right? So that's what's happened here, right? This has been in our portfolio and we signed the lease a little while ago, right? We renewed the resident a little while ago. And now that rent that we would actually market the rent for today, if we were selling the asset, is actually higher. And so what JWB does is we take that difference of the rent and we give that in the form of a buyer credit to the client who owns it. So this means if you buy the property, then you actually will get a credit of $2,520 right off the bat, which is a great way to juice your return on investment at the end of the day. And then later on, you know, as the rent continues to go up, as we continue to hopefully renew this resident, you get that market rent later on down the line and everybody really wins here. For all of those folks that are listening on the podcast now and aren't seeing this live, I'm going to read off some information so you know the property of the week and what we're looking at. And also, you should be going to jwbinventory.com if you want to download this exact Excel spreadsheet, see this exact property. You can even fiddle with it and change some of the numbers as far as interest rates or things like that if you'd like. But this property is at 559 Meteor Street here on the west side of Jacksonville. 32205 is the zip code. $290,000 purchase price, 4 beds, 2 baths, a 2-car garage, and lease rate of $1,668. That is the market rent for this lease. Property taxes about $3,500. Homeowners insurance about $568. That's actually been pre-quoted for you. No HOA dues. And of course, the home was built in 2017 by none other than JWB. This is an asset that we obviously built and have held in our company portfolio for many, many years. And happy to make it available for clients, especially as we kind of are easing into a waiting list environment to make sure that you guys have assets to be able to take advantage of. Lee, you know, you've heard me talk a lot about cash flow and return on investment here. How would you like to take a stab at what's important for you as an investor when it comes to cash flow and return on investment? Let's do this from a conventional financing perspective, because I think that's the language most people speak, and then we'll go into non-recourse financing. But when you see $52 a month of cash flow, what does that mean to you?
The important thing I want everybody to remember is that this is a snapshot in time, and it's your first year that you're looking at that you're going to collect that, because the second year when rent goes up automatically, your cash flow is going to increase by $25 or $50 or $75, depending on what the lease is set up for. So you're looking at $52 now, which isn't anything to write home about, but you know, your payment is going to maintain the same, and the cash flow is only going to increase year after year after year. So I wouldn't let that be a stumbling block. Remember, we're thinking with our mind and not our heart when we're buying these properties. So don't let that be a hang up. Your return on investment is what you want to be looking at. And at this point, it has a potential of 7.18. And as we all know, JWB underestimates and over delivers.
Oh, I love that. Man, you struck right at the core. First of all, the thing I love the most is we don't get overly excited about cash flow. That's not the beauty of this investment. Cash flow is the entrance to the game. It's what makes this an asset. But cash flows alone are not the reason to invest in rental properties. And if you go to other places to get real estate knowledge, you'll hear something very different. They'll be pumping up cash flows. Oh, this is going to change your life. Cash flows by themselves are probably not going to change your life in the first 1, 2, 3, 5 years, right? Probably not the first 10 years, right? It's going to be small. But what cash flows do is allow this to be an asset that you then get to benefit from the other 4 profit centers: tax savings, principal pay down, home price appreciation, inflation hedge, yeah. Right? That's your response there. Well, I don't get so excited about cash flow. That's exactly how I feel about it. If it's positive, I'm good, right? Then I'm going to start to look at return on investment. You mentioned 7.18%. That's our estimated conventional financing return on investment. That does not include home price appreciation. Lee, we're going to do this magic trick here where we're going to include home price appreciation here in a minute, and I don't know how familiar you are with market cycles and home price appreciation rates. Do you want to take a stab at why we don't include home price appreciation right off the bat?
I'm glad you asked, Greg, because I'm not usually answering this. I'm usually talking to myself.
Nice.
So the reason why you don't take in the home price appreciation is because it's a steady line at 4.3 in Jacksonville where it goes up, and there are fluctuations in the market. So it goes up and down and up and down. And if you happen to catch it on a downswing, eventually it's going to even itself out and self-right itself. So it's always a steady incline. So it's better than inflation, except you can't say that anymore because inflation is nuts. But it usually keeps up with your inflation rate. So it's a good indicator to know that your property is going to increase in value. And it's something to think about in the long term, but you're not thinking about it in the short run.
You hit on a lot of good details there. You talked about how in the short run, home price appreciation can do different things. It can go up, which we've seen over the last year. It can go down, which we saw in the Great Recession from 2007 to 2011. Doesn't typically do either of those as much as what happened. Generally, it's pretty steady and it goes up with inflation. But in the long run, over a full real estate cycle, it becomes a lot more clear. If you look at 10, 15, 20-year segments of time, you go to any market out there, you go to your market, wherever you're listening to in the world, and we have some folks that are listening from different countries. I don't know about those countries as much as I know about the US, but you go to any market in the country, because I've done this research, and you look at what their historical home price appreciation rate is, and you look at 10, 15, 20-year segments of time, it's pretty close. That just means that things are cyclical. Things come back to the norm. They come back to what your historically accurate home price appreciation rate is, or very close. And so if you are in this for the long haul, which is what I advocate, holding on for a full market cycle, you can count on home price appreciation, right? I started to invest in 2006. The market went way down. The market has since gone up again. I'm still investing in those rental properties now for 16 years. And my home price appreciation rates are very close to what the historically accurate home price appreciation rate was. And so that will be your experience as well. Now, the thing, Lee, let me challenge you a little bit here. You talked about how inflation right now is measured by the Consumer Price Index. It's at 7.9%, which is the largest it's been in 40 years. That means that this is actively eroding all of our wealth out there. We have to be tied to assets that can perform and are inflation protected. But you said home price appreciation actually, doesn't keep up with inflation. What about if you only put 25% down? then does home price appreciation keep up with inflation?
Absolutely, because your tenants are paying the rest of your principal and interest. So if you take into account that you've only put in a percentage of it and the rest of the asset is being paid for by somebody else, and you're getting the benefit of all of that, doesn't matter what the inflation rate is going to be, you're taking advantage of the entire win-win as far as, money for nothing. But it's not nothing, it's an asset.
You're right. You're right. It does beat inflation. And you know what? It beats inflation even if you don't count on those other profit centers. And here's the magic trick that we're going to show all of you. This was the thing, if we talk about Pablo's experience, Pablo, the host of our show, is not here today, but the single greatest thing for him that made it flip in his mind and why he's bought 2 rental properties is because he realized this factor right here. Jacksonville's historically accurate home price appreciation rate since 1982 is actually 4.6% per year. It was 4.3, Lee, like you talked about.
It was 4.3 and it's gone up.
It's gone up.
It's been adjusted.
It's been adjusted because of the home price appreciation we've seen recently. So 4.6%, if you were just thinking that your total return on investment for this property, including home price appreciation, would just be adding 7% plus 4%, that's what most people think. But look what happens when I type in 4.6% for home price appreciation. Right? This is the value of all 5 profit centers and also the value of smart debt and using leverage to your advantage in a risk mitigated fashion. When you include an asset that is going up 4.6% per year in value, but you only put a smaller percentage down, your return on investment goes up substantially. That's why this went up from 7%, not to 11%. That's why this went up to almost 25%. It's because the market value increases by 4%, 4.6% for that year. But if you only put 25% down, your real return on investment just from that appreciation went up by 4 times that. It went up whatever 4 times 4.6 is. I can't do the math off the top of my head, right? It's over 16%. And so if you're thinking about what separates the stock market from rental income properties, this access to smart debt is one of the biggest reasons savvy people, most wealthy people in this country, are using real estate as a tool to develop wealth. That's it right there. All right, Bill Sheila says, would it make sense to do 20% down on this one, even though you have negative $21 cash flow? All right, that is a great question, Bill. Lee, what do you think about that? You want to take that one? Or you want me to take that one?
No, that's fine. I don't mind taking that. I think you don't want to have any assets that's going to cost you money, even though it would only cost you money for the first year or 2. So you have to outweigh the odds, right? You have to outweigh what you're getting out of that in the total long run. If it makes sense to you to have more money to invest in multiple houses by just putting 20% down, then that's a route you would take. And you would take that negative, $21 because you're talking less than $1,000 a month that you're going to lose in a year on that asset. So it is really a discussion that you need to have with your portfolio manager. But I think they're going to say, what are you trying to get out of it? If you're trying to get multiple assets out of it, that's the route you want to take. Am I right, Greg?
I think that's really smart, right? I would say that every individual has different goals. And we would first start with a conversation, understanding what your goals are. Not everybody is going to have the same answer, but as a general rule, we want assets. We want assets that pay for themselves. That's important because you got to think about yourself owning more than just one, owning 3, owning 5, owning 10. So having an asset that pays for itself is really important. The thing I would say is, I wouldn't say necessarily 25% or 20%, because this evaluation, there are a lot of conversations that still need to be had where things can change. Like, for example, your interest rate might not exactly be 4.5%. It might be slightly different if it's 20% down or 25% down. Regardless of which way you would go today, this is going to be an easier question for you to answer today than it is a year from now, when you don't have the ability to go 25% down and still be positive cash flow, most likely, right? That's where I was going to go, is actually, where I see this going, because interest rates are going up and because home prices are going up, you're going to see properties that, instead of me saying 25% down is what I would recommend, or maybe even 20% down, you're going to start to see 30% down or 35% down, right? If you want to make this cash flow positive, if that's important to you, you got to put more money down in the future. So I would say, Bill, I know we're working together and I know before long, you're going to be a JWB client. Start those conversations with my team. When we get closer and closer to property selection, we're going to have a really detailed conversation at that moment. What are interest rates, the property evaluation? What are your goals? And we'll help you decide, is 20% down, 25% down the right amount? And for everybody else out there, right, get prepared that at some point it's going to be 30% down for you to be cash flow positive. That's a new concept I haven't thrown out there yet, but that's where I see it going. All right, Lee, we have your great reveal. I've been really excited about putting these stats together for you, including all 5 profit centers. You ready to jump into it, brother?
Listen, I'm just loving this. You know, it's great.
All right, let's see what we got here. Mr. Lee Bishop here. Here is what your portfolio looks like, my friend. We're going to start off like we do with every client portfolio, and we're going to look at what your why is. Brother, you shared that beautifully in the beginning, and I appreciate you sharing that. We talked about leaving a legacy, you know, and we talked about just flat out making your wife proud, which is just amazing, man. What we did together with you, Lee, is we broke that down into a monthly passive income goal, right? Looks like $20,000 is the long-term goal for you. And, you know, what we do is we set a current milestone, and the total number of properties that we targeted right now for you is 5. And I'm assuming that, you know, based on your goal and based on your date of next purchase, that was probably like a stepping stone goal for you. I would imagine that over time, there's probably going to be more. And, you know, it's probably time for us to look at what that next goal is over the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years with you. And our goal was to accomplish that by 2024. You're ahead of schedule. And it looks like you've been having conversations, or at least had targeted June of this year as potentially the next time for that next one to be added, which is super, super exciting.
Yep.
All right, Lee, you have so much to share about the way that you purchased your properties. So what I'm sharing here is Lee's actual client portfolio. These are the 5 properties that he purchased. You can see here that he bought all of these in 2019, right around the same time, right? Some things to mention here is his purchase prices were a lot lower in 2019 than they are in 2022, right? I wish prices were still this low. I really do. But what I can tell you is that they're not. And 1 year from today, prices are going to be higher than what you see for the properties that I'm able to put in front of you today. It's just where the market's going. You bought 1 in cash, 4 non-recourse. Can you talk about what non-recourse financing is, why you decided to put 1 in cash and 4 using non-recourse?
Yeah, actually, they're all in my Solar 401k LLC. So, you know, when Warren Buffett says, own nothing but control everything, that's your retirement account, right? You have signature authority over all of it. So you control where you're investing it. And I moved $500,000 and put it into a Solar 401k. And if you look, the 160, 155, all of that was how much it was going to cost. It would have been way over $500,000. So I went with non-recourse lending in it, and it actually, they let me put 40% down so that I didn't run over 500,000 and had plenty in reserves. And since I refinanced in December, my 3 properties were 90,000. My 4th property, I owe 50,000. So I was able to knock down about 40 grand using the trickle down effect and paying off that, you know, the non-recourse loan. But really, non-recourse lending is, they can't attack me. They can only get the asset or the house that is defaulted. But I, you know, all through COVID and everything, knock on wood, I never had to worry about missing a payment or anything. JWB had everybody, the rent was collected and everything was wonderful. So we've been lucky.
Beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And I know we had conversations, right?
Great.
Let's be honest. Nobody had dealt with COVID before. There were a lot of investors out there that didn't know how rental properties as an asset class were going to perform in COVID times, because nobody in the world knew how any investment was going to perform in COVID times.
Yep.
But what we talked about was, in times of uncertainty, it is good to be investing in a critical need. And housing is a critical need for the individual, and housing is a critical need for the government to be working as well. Lee, we've got a question from our friend from France, Anonymous Attendee. Anonymous has a question for you. Lee, how do you mitigate the risk of multiple properties in same location once you cross 5 properties?
I think what you're asking is, do I have all my eggs in one basket? And the answer is, I'm looking to put 20 in that same LLC. And actually, my wife is a member of the LLC also, so she can put 20 homes in there. She cashed in her 401k and started investing in houses. You're not looking at it like you're putting all your eggs in one basket, because if there's a lawsuit, there's mitigating factors that no government is going to let you sue against a retirement account. It would be a bad precedence. That's number one. So your assets are kind of protected that way. So
I love it. There's,
protected.
I think, two parts to the question, right? It's how do you protect yourself from an entity standpoint or asset protection level, which you detailed. I think another part of a question that many people have is, why is it okay for you to buy 5 properties in one location in Jacksonville? I get that question a lot. How are you comfortable with buying 5 properties in one location?
I had a lot of questions asked when I said, yeah, put me down as a reference. People are always calling me saying, why are you all in Jacksonville? I'm telling you, I haven't seen a better company to work with as far as turnkeys go. And the comfort that I have in JWB and my wife has in JWB is just incredible. We have a question to answer. So they're great people to work with. We went down there and got to know them. So there's that comfort level where we had a face to a name. You know, we weren't just somebody on the phone that we were talking to. And as far as diversifying your assets, if you have something that's producing and doing well for you, why would you want to change that? I looked at the other turnkeys that were available to me at the time, and I vetted, went through the process, and I decided that JWB was the best turnkey rental solution for me. So I stick with that, and it's been great because that's, I've been a big advocate of JWB, and Gregg knows that. I don't mind talking about, how well they do, and anybody that asks me, what's your opinion? Why do you ever have any negative things happen? Yeah, I think everybody does. I did right off the bat and worked through it, and JWB took care of all the issues. And I think I shared that with some people before, but I won't go into it again. It's just, they're an incredible company to work for, and I'll stand by them 100%.
Means a lot. Thank you. Thank you for that. I think, we're trying to take people away from just like thinking that they're investing in rental properties and just, take it to a much higher level of working with a world-class team. That's really what you need to do in order to be successful in whatever investment you're in. This happens to be rental properties, right? That happens to be the widget that we operate in property management and all that good stuff. But if you are putting a significant amount of your money and your retirement with some asset class, you need to be doing more due diligence on the team, right, than the asset, right? And you still need to do a lot of due diligence on the asset, but you need to do more on the team, right? That's how this can make this more successful, I think more fulfilling too, right? We think of ourselves as teammates with Lee. So Lee, thank you so much for saying that. Great question. All right, man. So we've got 5 properties for Lee, like we just talked about here. And a quick question was, what does it make sense to refinance? Lee actually did refinance. You can see 7.5% for his loan interest rate. Refinancing in your retirement accounts using non-recourse loans may be possible, may not be possible, depending on your loan. It's not possible for everybody. If you have a question about that, reach out to your JWB portfolio manager. We'll be able to help you out with that. But Lee did take advantage of that. And so his interest rates are actually lower. We're going to look at your highest lifetime return on investment. This is the best property that you have out of the 5. This is that one on Water Street. And you can see how this is performed for an average annualized lifetime return of 6.15% just on the cash flows. So Lee, congratulations on that. But, many people who are watching this may say, well, Gregg, that's not 7 to 9% return. That seems a little bit low to me. Can you explain why this is a great performing investment, even though 6% might be a little bit lower than what we show normally?
That is the one that I paid cash for. So no money's going out and all money's coming in.
Mm-hmm. When you buy in cash, right, you have a lot of benefits of more cash flow, but what you give is the potential return on investment, right? When you are using down payments, when you're using smart debt, you increase the chances of earning a higher rate of return. That same property that Lee has right here, if this was purchased with financing, his returns on investment would actually be higher just because he used financing versus cash. When you have one property that is bought in cash, you bring a tremendous amount of cash flow. When you have 4 non-recourse properties, there's not as much cash flow there, right? So again, this is in his retirement account. We need to make sure that this is cash flow positive, even more than if it was outside of his retirement account, because you have to keep everything inside the retirement account. If he had a big maintenance cost, right, he can't just pull it from his regular bank account. It all needs to be in there. So we needed to create for risk mitigation. And that's one of the reasons that we did that. All right, Lee, it's time to look at the lowest performing property. All right, this is the property at 765 59th Street. You can see here in 2019 through 2022 how we've been performing 1.92%. Lee, let's talk about all the bad here. I did a little research on it. You can see in 2022, we've got a negative 42% return here.
You know, that sounds horrible, doesn't it?
Through three. Why aren't you raising your hands up in the air and saying that you're done and this is the worst thing ever?
We had a, you know what? I'm not upset about it. Honestly, I'm not upset about it because it's still positive. It said negative over 1 year. So we had some, you know, issues with some plumbing or something. I don't know, whatever, some maintenance issues. And so I was paying money out of pocket, which is fine. I want the tenant to be happy. And I think at that time I was even offering, tell them I'll put them up in a hotel if they need to be in a hotel until this gets resolved, until what, you know, it was plumbing. And they said they had raw sewage and stuff. Well, we found out that it was them. So.
Oh, really? I don't even know these details.
Yeah. So they said, we're going to build that back. Now, the beautiful thing about that is it doesn't go to them as maintenance. It goes to them as rent. So they still owe it. Mm-hmm. So I have money that's owed to me and they're making payments to pay that back. But I mean, it's, you know, it's all positive, right? It's beautiful. It's so positive. It was down that 1 year, but that's all right.
Well, I love that we're sharing the worst experience probably that you've had so far, right? Let's share it. This is real. When you own 5 properties, this is going to happen, right? What Lee is sharing is that he had a $3,157 maintenance cost in 2022. Well, the reason you see negative 42% is because it's only 2 months of data. And, you know, when you only have 2 months of data and you have a big negative expense, that's going to make you very negative in your return on investment that year. Very negative. So that's why it looks so scary. But what he also shared is that we're going to do the extra due diligence to see what the source of the problem is. We determined that it was the resident's fault. And that resident, what I'm gathering, Lee, and I didn't even know this, is that it's on the resident's on a payment plan to pay you back. And,
yes.
And what we do for that is we attach it to rent. So that is required for that resident to pay that back with rent. And, you know, if they would neglect to do that, right, there would be consequences, right? You could get to an eviction status that way.
Right. I mean, if it was maintenance, they don't necessarily have to pay that. But once you convert it to rent, now it becomes mandatory that they have to pay it back. And we did work out a payment plan. So I'm all good. It's all fine. I'm not trying to hurt them. You know, I mean, they made a mistake. I was willing to pay, you know, because it's my house. I want to make sure it's right. And I want to make sure it's livable for them. And exactly. We found out that after several visits that it ended up being an issue with them, you know.
And listen, we want to treat everybody fairly here, but
right.
At the end of the day, you've done a lot to help this individual, right? It was explained to them that they had to keep right. the home in great working order. They were prepared appropriately. There was an issue. And, you know, we as your advocate need to treat all parties fairly, and we absolutely are. You've been very fair, right? You, in essence, gave them an interest-free loan, right?
Basically, yeah. That's fine.
And you've been very fair. And we, of course, are going to require that they pay you back as a condition of monthly inhabitants of the home. So right. To put it in perspective, the expected ROI from the cash flows for this property are 1.47%. So this is what happens in non-recourse properties. You're expecting just about break even. So 1.92 may look really low compared to what we talk about, but you have to consider the type of financing. This is actually overperforming, even though we had this big scary, you know, occurrence here in 2022. All right, Lee, we're getting to the end here, brother. We're taking a look at all of your 5 profit centers here. Your net rental income for your 5 properties here is $19,460. Congratulations on that. Next, we have tax savings here, and you got a big goose egg for tax savings. Lee, why do you have a goose egg for tax savings?
I'm not in a non-recourse loan. I'm not really taking advantage of any tax because it's all deferred.
It's already deferred.
All deferred.
Yeah. Saying no matter what asset you would have in that tax deferred account, you would be deferring the taxes already. We're not going to highlight specifically what rental properties does because any asset out there would have given you that tax saving. So we're not going to count that. You're already doing a great thing as far as saving on taxes because you're buying that in a solo 401k. But we're not going to juice your return on investments that way. Principal pay down, we will though. You've had $17,590 paid down of your loan by your residents. Isn't that just a beautiful thing?
It is. And the nice thing about it is it enabled me to put $40,000 down when I did refinance, because that was all reserves that had built up. So 17,590, I was just trying to see what the heck was going on for the whole year. But realistically, it was a lot more than that because I put a big chunk of change down.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. And I know your loan terms have changed as well, right?
Absolutely.
And this is assuming that your loan terms stayed the same. So that is incredible. If you're an investor out there and you're not paying attention to principal pay down, you are missing a big reason of why you should be investing in rental properties. So I hope I encourage you to stay tuned to the show to keep learning about that in these profit centers. Home price appreciation, brother. Over 5 properties, you've gained $145,000 in home price appreciation over the last 2.5 years. How does that make you feel? That's
incredible, right? I mean, that was part of the reason for refinancing because I knew the valuation was that much higher.
Exactly.
I was like, oh, wow.
Exactly.
Why wouldn't I?
And now you're engineering your own portfolio and you're saying, okay, how can I use this equity? How can I use this to help get to my goals faster, right? Equity just sitting in your property doesn't help you create passive income. There are ways to do that. Refinancing is a great way. And inflation hedging, a consumer price index is 7.9% right now. That means if you are earning less than 7.9%, you are losing in your investments out there. If you have it sitting in the bank account right now and you're earning next to nothing, you are losing big time. Have to find investments that are inflation protected, that are a hedge against inflation, and rental properties is about the best one out there. But I did include one thing here, and I wanted to just show everybody how I get to these numbers. I also include the selling, holding, and closing costs. Now, I know Lee is not going to be selling these properties right now because I know what his plans are, but I wanted you all to know that I take this selling, holding, and closing costs out when calculating the return on investment, right? If you're thinking about home price appreciation and these large numbers that our clients are earning, we also have to think about what it would cost to actually dispose of the asset. And so I'm going to start sharing this because these numbers are large. And what you should take away from this is that real estate is a costly asset to sell. And this is why you need to buy and hold for an extended period of time to make sure that these 5 profit centers can have time to mature much higher than what the selling, holding, and closing costs would be. All right, Lee, with all that being said, as we're getting close to wrapping up the hour here, brother, when you made the decision to invest in those 5 rental properties with us, we told you to expect a 2.9% return on investment. You have come in at a 6.9% return on investment. We are absolutely beating expectations. We have room for upside. So thankful for your trust. How does that feel? I see a big smile on your face over there. Tell everybody what you think as far as originally your decision with JWB and how is this changing your life, man?
Well, to be honest, I'm in it for the long haul, and I plan on, like I said, this is going to be a generational asset that I'm going to be able to turn over to my son and my nephew. And, so I want to have more than just 5. So that's why I said I'm working to have 20. But the big thing is, if I can just say, I'm not worried about what inflation does because I got this positive cash flow coming in because this portfolio is paid for, and then I can use that money to generate more wealth and everybody's talking about going into Bitcoin and stuff like that. I have free money that I could play with eventually, right? Because this cash flow coming in, I can say, I don't need that yet. So I can play in that arena and not worrying about losing money because it was money that was found. It's going to keep being found.
So many folks try so hard when they get to retirement to have enough to survive, but they think of it in terms of this big pile of money. You have transformed this into, I need to have enough money when I retire, but it needs to be steady, recurring income coming in every single month. There's a big difference there. And when you get to that level where you start to see this income coming in, it's not about the pile of money, it's about the income. Then you can do the things that you're talking about, Lee, right?
Right. Yeah.
Now
as long as your income is more than your expenses, in a year or in a month, you're golden.
You're golden, baby. You're golden. And you are golden, Lee. You have done an incredible job as a guest investor here. Everybody, give him some love. Give him some support here. I know you guys are so gracious in the chat, and we certainly appreciate you. If you are listening on the podcast or on Facebook or on the radio, and you are not live here in the community, we would love to extend an invitation for you to be here. It is a ton of fun. The chat is always blowing up. 30, 40, 50 of us show up each and every week. I am so thankful to all of you for helping me do my best to replace Pablo this week, as hard as that is.
You were killing
it. for getting us to the finish line there. And for all of you who are not here live, join us live in the audience. You can register at nyais.com, nyais.com. And that's a wrap for this show. And Lee, I'm just gonna again say thank you. Thank you, not just for what you do here for the show. There were a few of you who really carried the torch for this community in the very beginning. There was really nothing in the beginning. There were literally 5 or 10 of us hanging out, and you were here each and every single week. And I know you did that beyond benefiting yourself, right? Beyond the education you're going to receive. I look at it as you saw a friend in me, and you said, listen, I want to help. And so I just want to say thank you. It's a blessing to be here with you now and on past 2 years of doing the show, but I will always remember those times, and I really appreciate it. It meant a lot to me, brother.
I appreciate you saying that. I consider you and Pablo to be friends, and we've gotten to know each other a lot closer on these shows. And I've only done a couple, but every time it's a lot of fun. I encourage people to do this because it really is not only educational. They say it's in a hot seat, but it's like you're sitting around and seeing a bunch of friends, right? And I'm seeing the chat. Everybody is talking about, what a great job. I'm trying to answer when I can, but if it wasn't for this community, I wouldn't do it. This community shows a lot of love to everybody, you and Pablo included. And, if I didn't think that we can contribute, if I didn't think we had some positive impact on the people who are listening to this show, the show wouldn't be that fun. You guys make it fun, and it's fun to watch you guys interact. It's an informational show to be, and to have access to the leadership and to see what you guys are thinking. That's insightful. That we always talk about transparency. JWB has incredible transparency, and you don't hold any punches. When people ask you questions, there's no guesswork, there's no holding back, and I just love you for it. I honestly, I'm a big proponent, big supporter. Anytime you need any help with anything, I'm going to be there for you.
I know you are. And I just want to say thank you, man. Right back at you. We love you too. This community loves you. For anybody who wants to actually get to meet Lee in person, Lee's going to be hosting one of our IRL meetups, our in real life meetups. It's going to be in the Pittsburgh area towards the end of May.
Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, Memorial Day. Is the 29th is the meetup? Yeah. So anybody who's in the Pittsburgh, New Jersey, New York area, Ohio area, would love for you to take that step and get to meet Lee and Jen and a few other, and Bill and B Harris, who are really close to my heart in the Pittsburgh area, right? Renee will be there. Would love for you all to take one step closer and just to become a bigger part of this community. Thank you all for a wonderful time here on this Thursday. We will catch you next Tuesday. Until then, don't be average.